and welcome to Third Eye Thinkers. I'm your host, Megan Benanti.
And I'm your host, Michelle Welch.
Thanks so much for joining us today and listening in. So today we are going to discuss, go ahead.
The dark side.
Getting in touch with our dark side.
Yeah.
Because it's there and it's real and it is something we all have to deal with, whether you're a practicing psychic or you're an everyday person. We all feel those challenges. And we felt like it was something that we needed to talk about. So,
right. I think that one of the big things that happens, I was telling Matt, our producer, before the show, is that we even see people I didn't say this part, but we do see people for energetic work or energy work or Reiki or crystal healing. A lot of people who stuff those things, like that we might call the shadow side or another word for maybe the dark side, the shadow side, those things about ourselves that maybe we might need to look at, but we don't want to.
Right.
Yeah.
And, to me, this is a connection, like when we watch Star Wars and we're talking about the Force, there's the dark side and the light.
Right.
And this is something that we have to acknowledge on a daily basis as something we're dealing with. It can also be neutral, though. It doesn't necessarily have to be a darkness. And so that's something to consider, too, and how you're going to work with a neutral energy.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting to me that, I think a lot about the laws of the universe, first of all, and I question, okay, are those really the 12 laws of the universe? But we've been talking about those in my intuitive class. Nice. Because for some reason I said, we'll go through the 12 laws of the universe. And I'm like, oh, why did I agree to do that? I mean, because everybody always goes straight to manifestation because of the book, The Secret, which was great. But they go to the law of attraction. And, but they forget the law of action, which is in the law of attraction. It's a different law.
Yeah.
And another law is the law of duality and polarity. And that where there's dark, there's light, good, bad, whatever word you want to use, hot, cold, there's a spectrum. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting sometimes to kind of explore that just philosophically and think, how do we define that? And how do you define, of course, having a moral compass, everyone, I think, has some sort of belief system or moral compass. But how do you really know how to define what energy, let's just talk about energies, what energies we're working with? And you and I kind of talked about that the other night.
Right. And that is something that had come up for me recently. I had received a really great Reiki session, and during that, a new guide came in for me, and it generally felt pretty positive and gave me a name and everything. And as I began to work with it, it was really, really powerful, and I was doing really great work. But I also began to see some inconsistencies, like that I was like, and I asked this guide, I was like, are you good, bad, or neutral? And I got neutral, that there was, this is the sort of the balance of the elements, like being a human, we're neutral. And I was like, okay, I need to think about this, because for me, there was some hesitancy there. And what I found is it gave, there was some real power that came from that, like really solid counsel. My readings were really strong. But it still wasn't, I decided inevitably that wasn't the right energy for me. And talking about it with Michelle was also really helpful. And so having, someone of a like mind that you can share those thoughts with. And I realized the person that I was sort of comparing this energy to, and I was like, oh, huge signal, because this was not necessarily a good person. And so that's something to keep in mind when if you are working with something and you're like, who does it make you think of? Does it make you think of the best person,
Yeah.
Or are you thinking about it in contrast to someone that maybe isn't so positive? Mm-hmm. And share your insights that you gave me, because that was really helpful for me to define that, no, I don't want to do this anymore.
Well, I think, and I'm not sure, because I probably don't remember a word I said, but, no. But I think that I know one thing that I told you is that not only, I love what you just said, compare it to somebody I didn't say that. That's a great idea, Megan. I also thought of, what are they telling you, and how are they making you feel? Are they Did I talk to you about that? Like, how are they making you feel?
You said possessive or protective of you, like they kind of wanted to be the only one.
Yeah.
And I had realized my other guide, my main guide that I'd normally worked with, had kind of gone away. And I was like, oh, bling, 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 you know.
Right, and I think it's true with teachers for classes. If any, I think that's a big red flag. Same with guides. If they're possessive, if they're making you feel bad about yourself, yours wasn't necessarily not like saying
No,
bad
not
things,
at all.
but some people's, if it was a lower one, it might be.
Right.
And eventually, but you can only listen to me. You know, I'm your only teacher. You can't go get, you know, healings from anybody else. You can take it into the real world too. And anybody who says that, you know, I think it sends up a red flag.
Right.
Because that's possessive, and that's a lower energy. That's a lower vibration, being possessive like that.
Absolutely.
Now, protective's different, but possessive.
Right. And I didn't find this guide particularly possessive, but I did find it just not, inevitably not feeling as 100%. And if I'm going to work with a being that I can't fully identify, I want to be 100% sure. And I've been doing this kind of work a long time, so it's not like I'm naive or anything like that.
But sometimes you need to run it by somebody else. It doesn't have anything to do with being naive. When you're going through it, you would tell somebody else, you'd be able to give them advice on it. But when it's you're going, and that's the thing I think, is I think that some of it is kind of a slippery slope. Because I had a neutral one time too, and I did the same thing. And I had a teacher who actually said, I can't believe you sent that neutral to the light. That's what I do. I say, just go to the light. Go get worked on, and then maybe, you know, but you're not on my radio channel, so we're not on the same frequency, it's not the frequency I want to be on, because I want to be higher, not neutral. I want to be raised up by my whoever's guiding me, right? And my teacher was like, why'd you do that? And I was like, why wouldn't I? You know, it was interesting, because people do have different opinions about it.
Yeah.
But I just think that it can be a slippery slope into what you said, that your readings were a lot stronger. So I could see how people, let's just use the phrase the dark side.
Right.
You know, if you want to use, you know, if you want to define it that way, vibration, whatever you want to call it, lower vibration, I can see how it would be tempting, especially early on, if somebody's just getting, you know, they're in touch with their intuitive abilities, and they get caught up in ego.
Right.
And the need to be right, and they're like, oh, wow, I'm getting really good readings with this. I'm not getting rid of this person or this guide or energy, right?
Well, and that's one thing that was interesting about this, is he was not, I say he, it.
Well, you keep saying he, so it feels like
it felt like a he to me. Very evolved being, and I don't necessarily, it wasn't from the angelic realm, but it was just a very evolved being. And so the information and being able to give to someone and help them heal was really awesome, but it's just not something that I need to work with on a regular basis. And it was something too that it came in a place where I was really, since I was in a Reiki session, I was super open and connected, but I also didn't think to maybe put a layer of protectiveness on myself before that session. I certainly want the Reiki master to be able to work with me and in my energy field, but I also, I probably don't need to be an open telephone line for whatever else is out there.
Right.
You know?
Right. I think you may have gone through it too, because you have been in this business so long, just as a reminder, and you work with very high vibration and very light workers, light beings.
Yeah.
That's obvious. So it's just a reminder, maybe, so you can advise other people.
Yeah, and that's true. Maybe it came up really as a lesson for me, because I've never had anything like that come through in a Reiki session that wasn't like angelic and really positive. And and though I will say, like, again, I didn't experience this as negative. I just began to see things that I thought, how do I feel about that?
Yeah. So so you said neutral.
Right.
Right.
So when you're working with people, or when you're getting into this, or you're praying, you want to be clear, and you want to trust your own intuition about what you're feeling from that being on the other side. I love the idea that, if you feel like you're getting a lot of power, but does that feel like it's also possessive, or somehow not working at a higher vibration? Or even if you see like the colors, if you're a visual person, you know, a lot of times there's like a shimmer or something, but what colors do you see in that? Are they connecting as something really positive for you? Or does it have a darkness to it? And that's also something to kind of keep in touch with.
What's interesting is there are people, and they're very nice people that I know, that feel like, and some of them, and I don't want to offend any shamans, but I will say that shamans, if you read about a lot of, and shamans aren't just Native Americans. We've said that before. They started like forever ago. They were in Siberia. I had to take a class. I've been working sort of on this doctorate for quite some time.
Oh,
and
wow.
so I have some really, really good books on shamanism. It's mainly about how man began and like the Cro-Magnon and all this. And I was like, oh, when are we getting to the good stuff? But
Wow.
a lot of those workers will work with, I'll just use the word like demon-like entities. They will.
Oh.
In back everything I was reading about. So that's not to offend anybody. There are some people who will tell you, you know, they work with lower beings because they feel there's a purpose for that. That's not for me, and I don't think I'd want anybody to work on me that was doing that. But there are people who do because they feel like that's the way they can help somebody else that's in that situation.
Oh,
Now, I don't agree
interesting.
with that, but there are plenty of people out there who do, that are very
Right.
nice people who feel that it can serve a purpose.
Right.
Now, that just wouldn't be me.
Well, and a lot of that is how you're introduced to it as well. You know, I think even the first book I read in this direction was Eden Gray's, one of her books on tarot. And she was one of the first authors on tarot. And she said, you know, like you couldn't even read for yourself. So I was the only nerd who didn't. Like, and I thought, God, this stuff is so hard, you know? But I was like, buy the book because I didn't want to mess around. I didn't know what could be invited in.
Right.
And I didn't, in a lot of ways, I didn't know what I was getting into.
Right.
So it was quite an adventure. But
Yeah, I think you have to be careful, but I don't think that it's as scary as everybody thinks. Everybody immediately will go to, oh, if you're doing readings or if you're channeling something, then it's automatically bad. There are a lot of people who've told me that you know, something's taking over your body. No, it's not.
no.
Nothing's ever taken over my body like that. You know, just like maybe the flu,
Right.
but but nothing from. It's just not that way for me. But it's because I'm very careful.
Yeah. Well, and I have been, you know, surrounding myself with protective light for a long time. But, you know, it's not going to be, nobody's going to come at you with lightsabers, and you're not necessarily going to be, it's not like it's going to be a dark or a demonic energy that comes through. It's not always scary.
No.
And that's what you have to kind of be aware of. It's like, and, you know, ask to work with the highest vibrations out there.
right. I agree with that.
Or ask to work with God directly, or however you see, you know, that great being out there, or part of us.
I'll tell a lot of people they're like, I want to know my spirit guides. I want to know my spirit guides. And I'm saying a lot of times I feel they're kind of receding in a way because they're encouraging us. They're just guides. Maybe not just, but they're guides.
Right.
To guide us to God, to guide us to our higher self that connects to God. And we don't always have to have that guide working with us all the time. We can go straight to, we can be a straight, clear channel.
Yep, to that divine source. And I actually started that way, and it wasn't until I began to read books about how to connect with your guides and angels that I began to work in that direction.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, so then I've got a middleman, which isn't bad, and I can get a lot of information really quickly. But I really, from, you know, a really early age on, just prayed to God and talked to God, and that
Me
was
too.
my communication form.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because that can even tie into, you know, some people believe there needs to be a middleman in certain religions, and some people don't. So it's just whatever works for you. You know, there's not necessarily, that's why we have different belief systems. But, you know, in the Catholic Church, there's a middleman.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is. a middleman, and you have a lot of saints that can help you. We have a great deck at the store. You'd
Oh,
love
yeah?
this. Yeah, it's called Saints and Angels. And so the deck is actually divided in two.
Uh-huh.
And so the back of the cards are either gray or blue or something like
Okay.
that. And so if you connect with saints, then you can use that part of the deck. If you connect more with angels, but if you connect with all of them, you can put them all together and do readings.
Oh, wow.
And we were, the other night after Soultopia Sensation, there were about 10 of us.
Mm-hmm.
So we got those cards out. Somebody bought them, and I was like, let me see them. And so we all drew a card around the table. And it was so neat how many, we each drew a saint card and we each drew an angel card. And it was really, really a fun deck. I think that's
awesome.
a new deck that's out. I can't remember, but it's called who wrote it, but it's called Saints and Angels. And it was beautiful. We had a good time with it.
Very cool.
Yeah, we
Very cool.
had a really good time with learning about the different ones too.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
And that's actually something that's really interesting. You were talking about, you were working with everyone there. I've had the pleasure of working with Michelle some recently. She had a Reiki circle, which she does monthly at Soultopia, and I worked with her on that. And I forget, I've worked alone for so long that when you combine intuitive healers together, that power is like multiplied big time.
And it was in that room, wasn't it?
It was.
Yes.
It was really strong work. And so, in very short amount of time, we were like working through people and helping them get clarity on what they needed and clearing out their chakras and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So
That was really good.
yeah, and that was a room that was definitely filled with light energy and with a really positive force. And Michelle had brought in crystals that she laid under the table. And then she also did crystal healings on some of the people that were there. And so that also, brought up their vibration and helped to absorb any kind of negativity that might have been going on.
And I think it's the intention we set because that's how you work also.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
beautiful to watch. And so I would encourage more people to come to that. Trying to talk Megan into taking that over. She's a great healer. But it's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
It's every third Saturday at our store.
Yeah, and it is a pretty cool experience. You can either receive healing, or if you want to practice your healing practice, you can help work on people on the table.
Or do both, yeah.
Yeah, or do both, which is what
Right.
I did, and that was lovely.
Yeah,
So
it's good.
yeah, I got some Michelle mojo. It was pretty awesome.
I was like, well, I got your mojo just from being in the room. So, yeah, because it was great to watch. So, yeah. We want to talk about our crystals?
yeah, go ahead.
Because I'll tell you why I want to talk about them. So I brought 2 today.
Mm-hmm.
Now next time it'll be 10. No, I'm kidding. I'm starting my crystal healing class tonight, and they're learning 18 crystals tonight.
Oh, that's awesome.
So by the time they're finished, they'll know quite a few. But
And Michelle is a really good teacher. I really enjoyed when even in the Reiki room the other day, she was like kind of explaining to people what was happening, what was going to go on, and that was really cool. So
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you'll be doing that soon. You're a really good teacher, too. That's how you're going to do it. She's on the spot. Okay, so I put crystals for facing the dark side, just for looking. And you have to begin. Was more about shadow work, okay? So what shadow work is, one more time, is just working with those aspects of yourself that kind of you've repressed, or somebody told you, don't act that way. Don't get mad. Don't do this, don't do that. Things that, you think, aren't acceptable and they're not good, but so you stuff them down, and then sometimes we get sick. It comes out in illness for us, and then you come to the Reiki circle.
Or depression.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it comes at any kind of, it could be psychological or physical, but at some point it turn it to physical. So, but anytime you want to work with that, the shadow side, and by the way, Carl Jung, a very well-known psychologist, taught very much about the shadow side. And but you always want to begin with something really gentle to get yourself into a place of self-love, because you're going to explore some things that maybe aren't so positive about yourself. Some things that, like Megan, like you said at the top, we're neutral.
Right.
And so you want to. I chose the rose quartz. Is the pink. Most people are probably familiar with that. I have it on in my necklace too, if y'all can see it.
It's beautiful.
It's a really pretty piece. And it's just a very, very gentle stone. So it is quartz. And anytime you have a quartz, that's silicon dioxide. And I'm going to make a joke, and everybody gets sick of me. So we all have silica in our bodies. We don't all have silicone. Some of us do.
That was
had to
so
do it.
wrong on so many levels.
But we do. We all have silica in our bodies, so that's why we respond really well to the quartz. And so there's rose quartz, there's amethyst is a quartz, tiger's eye is a quartz, smoky quartz, citrine. And so the rose quartz is extremely gentle, and it's all about self-love. So it's kind of the lower heart, and then the higher heart would be the green, which would be like a green aventurine. So, but working on yourself for self-love, and then you can go to like an obsidian. Now, we had gone over black obsidian before, so today I brought the snowflake obsidian, which is really cool. It has a little white inflection or little white specks on it, and that is something, I think it's cyclo something. I can't remember what mineral that is. But basically, it's not really a mineral anyway, because I'll tell you, well, it's a mineral, but obsidian is not a crystal.
Right.
Obsidian is glass, but we call it a crystal just for ease of purpose. It comes from volcanic lava that just cools off so fast that it doesn't form crystals. So it has an amorphous inner structure. It's just kind of random, not a fixed structure. So they can be a little more unsettling to work with, but the white flecks make it really gentle. And and also if you're looking, it's black with white flecks if you're listening, and it can help you make decisions. So the way it ties in today is it can help you, you know, what if you are making some decisions that are quote unquote not for your best good, not for your highest good? What if you are trying to make a decision like you made the other night? You might, you know, just kind of meditate with a snowflake obsidian. They also are very calming, and but probably the biggest thing is I think it helps you make choices, and it represents kind of the yin and the yang.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, and that makes sense with the black and the white.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
very cool. Yeah, I have one of those that has like the thumbprint in it that I keep on my desk, and I find that clients pick it up a lot and just play with it. It's a
that feels good.
Yeah, it's good for fidgeting.
So I want to tell you, because you brought up Star Wars.
Oh, yeah.
So it's interesting. I am not, so Star Wars people, do not get mad at me, okay? So the lightsabers, right?
Yep.
So the lightsabers, apparently they go, and they're told to go and get their own crystal, okay? So and the whole thing is that if you're on with the Force and you are on the good side and you're pursuing good, then you will get like a blue, your energy will kind of put it in it. It'll be blue, like a blue crystal, or maybe a purple. I think Samuel L. Jackson's was purple, and it was really cool. But the blue is like a Jedi guardian, and the green is a Jedi consular, and the yellow is a Jedi sentinel. Okay, but if it's red, okay.
Like Darth Vader.
So he didn't end up, and you know, he was redeemed at the end because he realized, I know, right? And so, but if it's red, they say that's like a synthetic crystal. So then they can put their energy in it. Now, I'm just saying.
Oh, interesting.
It's fun because there's even games where you go and you find the crystals and you dig for the crystals, and that's a whole nother show when people, you know, talk about our crystal topic, when they talk about, you know, is it or synthetic crystals bad, or are they good? But apparently in Star Wars, it's not so good.
Interesting. Okay.
Isn't that funny?
There we go.
Yeah. So they were really told to go use the lightsabers. And Matt, I think we had a couple just quotes before.
Yeah. No, I think
Okay, you want to talk about that?
Well, Michelle pulled this up, and I love it. It's the dark side of your zodiac. And for those of you watching, it's cool. Where did you find that online? Do you know?
You know what? It does say it's on the side, personalitybuzz.com.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of great to look at if you're into your own zodiac, and to kind of like get that reinforcement of like, oh yeah, these are the things I need to work on. So this would be the shadow side of yourself.
So mine is Cancer, and let's see, there it is, Cancer, clingy, yeah, sensitive, oh, for sure, closed off sometimes, emotional, yeah. So those are definitely my shadow sides. There's probably a lot more.
Yeah, no, I can see that. And I'm a Leo, so I'm arrogant. I can't read it. Something impatient and easily angered.
It says sensitive.
Oh, sensitive.
Yeah. Sorry, it's a little cut off there for you.
Oh yeah, no worries. I am a little sensitive. That's okay.
What sign are you, Matt? Do you know?
I'm a Capricorn.
All right.
So, well, he's arrogant too.
Yeah, arrogant, selfish, and stubborn.
Yeah. Materialistic is the other one that's cut off along the bottom.
Oh,
but yes.
okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Are you materialistic? Like, it looked like your shadow side.
I mean, yes, I think probably in the worser parts of myself, might be considered that.
Yeah.
What's funny is my wife is a Taurus, and it also lists her as materialistic, and I would say that's absolutely true.
Shy, lazy, irrational.
I don't know that the other ones count, but gosh, she loves to go shopping at Home Goods. So.
Well, that's at least it's Home Goods.
At
Because
least,
they
right.
have good deals, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
yeah. She knows that she's a frugal shopper.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So-
They have, but you want a lot though when you go there.
Well, I
They have
always tell
lots.
her just because it's a deal doesn't mean we had to spend money on it. So that's I
Right.
don't know if that's frugal or not.
My
Yeah.
girlfriend taught me early in my 20s that it doesn't matter how good a sale is if you don't have money.
Right.
That's very true.
Yeah, it went a long way.
But we just thought that was kind of a fun little, or I did a little fun, little ways to look at maybe your shadow side, see if any of those apply. And
Yep.
And then we had this little quote by Rumi: "Both light and shadow are the dance of love," and basically talking about, embracing all of ourselves.
Yeah, that we are both parts of these, and don't be ashamed of the things that you've got to work on. That's just part of who we are, and who might come through if you're working in the psychic world. Don't beat yourself up if you end up working with something that you decide is not going to be good for you in the long run. I mean, we meet people like that. You will have friends in your life that are good for a while, and then all of a sudden it's like, maybe we're not so good for each other anymore, and
They
that's
come
okay.
in for a season, for a purpose,
Right.
to
right.
teach us something.
Yep.
Almost always to teach us.
Absolutely.
Which I hate to admit that. I just don't like admitting that. I'm just like, does everything have to be a lesson? But,
Yeah, it kind of does.
Yeah.
Everything is a lesson.
Yeah.
So,
so.
well, let me talk about my plant real quick.
Yes.
I brought in pine today, and that's actually from a pine in my yard. I call it my Ewok tree. It's really short and stubby. It's very cute. It's a dwarf pine.
That is cute.
It is really cute. I have like 3 of them. So pine, they're known for healing, fertility, protection, exorcism, and money. And I did think about bringing in pine for exorcism, but I was kind of saving it for Christmas because, of course, it's a decorative piece as well in our holiday season.
I was like, what are you going to exercise at Christmas?
No. When we talked about
didn't mean
some
to throw you
previous
off.
subject.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So, anyway, so for pine, I really looked at magical uses, and I looked at what do they call it, Wikipedia, which is so cool if you're at all into like magical plants or crystals or anything. Yeah, Wikipedia.com, and a woman named Dawn Black runs that, and it was pretty neat. I also looked into the Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs, which initially when I bought that book, I was like, oh, what is this? Why did I buy this? And now, I am finding it really interesting. And I don't really use my plants necessarily in a magical way, but I do find that because they exist in my yard, it changes the energy and the vibration of my home. So, I'm, but without even knowing it, I was using it in a very magical way.
Right.
So, pine, if you think about it, it's a really old plant, and they've been using it for magical stuff for a really long time. A few interesting facts: there's 26 different species of it. They're called gymnosperms. They produce the seeds in their cones, and the leaves are called fascicles, like icicles, but it's fascicles. So the leaves are the little sharp, pointy things that you can poke your eye out with, and one of the things that's cool about them is so they can handle all kinds of living conditions, from extreme cold, and then there's also some types of pines that grow in the desert, and so that can be a real positive for, wherever you are, that it's easily accessible. But pine needles in general, or pines in general, so there's different ways of using it. You can use the branches, you can use the needles. And a lot of times, we think of hanging pine over the hearth, and which we do at holiday time, but that was also a way that they would keep negative spirits from coming down the chimney. And you can lay like pine needles out to clear out any negative energy in the home. And you think about it, when we use pine, we're thinking Pine Sol, and that's what we use to clean our floors. And so we still have this very everyday connection with pine. And there's a lot of candles that are scented with pine. The pine needles can be used to create a base for incense. Um, Branches can be used like above the bed. They were always traditional to kind of like help sickness, like not enter the bedroom or to help someone heal. And even in like Japan, it was hung over the door, a branch of pine to keep joy in the house. So there was a lot of kind of interesting uses with it all over the world. And they even talked about like in China how what was it? Oh, pine symbolizes steadfastness, perseverance, and resilience. And so, and when you think about it in Asian art, you know, they paint pines a lot. And so there's a whole nother deeper level of meaning that was going into those paintings by what was pictured in them. It wasn't just because it looked pretty. It was like they were really representing ideals into their artwork. So, and you know, you think about the old witches and like sweeping a broom of pine out of the house and stuff. So that was the idea of sweeping out that negative energy. It also, you know, it burns really fast, and so you know, it makes a good basis for if you need to clear out negative energy and burn it out type thing. That would tie in. So that's why I picked up pine to clear out the dark side.
That's a great one for that. And
yeah,
think about it, pine cones. They represent the pineal gland because that's what that means.
Oh, wow.
So
yeah.
Remember that? And we got those pine cones at the Reader Studio.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, and they had interesting uses like being good for like fertility and stuff, which was said in multiple places, which is interesting to me. Oh, and you know, I didn't even think about it, but pine nuts, like if you go to Boston and you go to Mike's Pastry and you order these cookies called pignolis, which is Italian for pine nuts, and but it's pine nut cookies, and I never thought about it, but yeah, pine nuts, they're edible, they're delicious. So
I didn't know that.
yeah, I use them on salads and things like that. You can toast them. A lot of times they'll be in Italian pastas and things like that.
Oh.
So yeah, so that was pine. All right, so let's look at our reading real quick. Do we have time, Matt?
Yeah, we can do one real quick.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to pull out 2 charms, and
Want me to do this?
yeah, please. So we've got the Urban Tarot today, and our charms are a $100 bill and a hand with a third eye in it. So, and not the traditional Hamsa hand, but we can call it that for today. But it is more of like a human hand with the third eye. So either you're going to pick the $100 bill or the hand of intuition here.
Well, that's a hard choice.
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh, do we go materialism
that's
or
the dark
spirituality?
side and
Oh yeah, totally. That would represent kind of the dark side and the
I mean,
light
not
side.
all money's bad, but
No.
loving it, right?
Right.
Okay. Do you want to pick one and I'll pick one?
Yep. And absolutely don't ever consider money bad, because that's gonna
Right.
you're never gonna get what
No,
you want
it's
if
not
you think
bad,
that.
but it was kind of funny.
Oh, okay, interesting. So what'd you get?
I got the. Well, on
that's
here
the
it's called the.
Aegean
It's the.
or
It's the
Aeon.
world, right?
Judgment.
Judgment. Sorry.
That's the judgment card.
I'm not great with Roman numerals, which makes it hard when you're reading tarot cards.
Okay, so judgment lines up with the $100 bill, and the Urban Tarot is based on New York City. So I have not been there, but I believe this is ground zero, and a list of all the names that have passed. And we've got an image of a woman here who's looking at her reflection in this wall as she walks along, and the reflection is a woman with a traveling bag.
I just see the perfect representation of what we talked about today, shadow side. She sees her reflection.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because she has a bag. You may be seeing something totally different. And then, no, money's not always bad, but it's, it could be a representation of materialism. And just, I think this is telling someone, if you drew this one, just don't be afraid to look at your shadow side.
Right.
Don't be afraid to go there. It might be time. And
don't be afraid of the things when you make a judgment call on yourself and you're evaluating yourself about what works and doesn't work for you. And it, in that case too, we have to acknowledge the deepest, darkest, hardest parts of ourselves to have growth. and I'm looking at that money, and I was like, it might be time to invest in yourself a little bit, and to acknowledge some of those dark things, and either maybe get some counseling or get a good reading, but maybe take a look at that in investing in yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, and so for our intuition hand, we have a card called Luxury, which is the Four of Cups. And we've got a couple guys here watching TV in their undies, and they've got milk all over the table, like 4 glasses of milk, 1 spilt, and some cookies. And maybe what I'm getting with this is that, intuition and trusting yourself, it's not always easy. 4 of Cups is that idea that a lot of times in the traditional image, God is handing you something, and it's not just what you want right at that moment. And so sometimes with intuition, we don't always get the message that we want to hear, or we don't always get the guide that we think is going to be the best for us. And so it's okay to question that and to experience that and then move on.
Yeah, and these guys are just laid back. They're content, but they're also discontent in a way. Okay,
Yeah.
so they're bored. They're like,
They are
whatever. So it looks like they're they're content because they're just hey hanging out. But probably in the big scheme of life, it's like, get up and get that other glass of milk. That's the hand of God, coming towards you to hand to you. It's right in front of your face. It's going, whoa, and you're just so busy looking down at everything you don't have, and, oh, man, I don't have this, or I'm bored, or life's not great, when really, if you just look up, it's right there in your face.
Right. Yep.
Big old glass of milk.
Or whatever it is that's going to fill you up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right, everyone.
All right. So thanks for joining us this week. We want to remind you guys to subscribe to Tarot Dallas for Megan, and to Michelle Soltopia, and this is on YouTube, and Real News Communication. It's communication, I believe. Maybe an S. I'm not sure.
Communications.
Thank you.
Network.
With an S.
Communication. So Real News Communications. And also rate and review us on all of the podcast platforms. And then be sure to tell your friends to listen.
Thanks
and
so much.
Keep third eye thinking.